Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma is proud to present The Shasteen Show from London's in downtown Tullahoma. Brought to you by Southern Community Bank, Rogers Insurance Group, and Mission Collision. Now, here are your hosts, Scott Shasteen and Ken Keller.
Good afternoon and welcome to downtown Tullahoma, live at London's. It's the last July edition of the Shasteen Show. I'm Scott Shasteen. Good to have you in on this Monday. I'm flying solo tonight. Ken Keller on special assignment in beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee. I have sent Ken up there. He doesn't know it yet, but I've arranged a blood transfusion for him. He will come back a full-blooded Tennessee Volunteer fan. He will not only be all in for the Volunteers, but he will forget he was ever an Alabama fan. So that's something to tune in for next week, as we will have Ken with a live report from Knoxville next week on the practice Volunteers. Now, Ken on special assignment tonight, so he'll be out, so we'll take it solo, just like old times. Used to do a solo talk show on In Another Life, so it'll be familiar to me, maybe not to you. Hope you'll stick around. I got some things I want to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Tullahoma High School football. I'm going to throw out my 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. And then next week when Ken is back, we'll give Ken an opportunity to do that. But we talked about that last week, this new game that we're playing called 5 Faces, where we basically pick out any topic and throw out 5 faces, kind of like Mount Rushmore, except it gives us an opportunity to do 5 instead of 4. So we'll throw out our 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. I would love to give you the opportunity to call in and have your input on these 5 faces, but we still don't have the luxury of taking phone calls here on the Shasteen Show. 5 weeks now we're into that. 5 weeks a sports talk show with no phone. So duck, get some technicians up in here. Let's get this thing fixed. You can watch the replay of this show on beginning Wednesday night at 6 o'clock on Light 2 Channel 23. We are 17 days away from kickoff of high school football season. 17 days. Thursday, August 16th, 7 o'clock kickoff from Wilkins Stadium. Ken will join me for the broadcast here on a radio station near you. Tullahoma will be hosting Shelbyville. It, of course, is a non-region game. Last year, the Wildcats beat the Golden Eagles 37-29. You'll remember Tullahoma got up 37-7 at halftime and then basically held on for dear life. The Golden Eagles have their quarterback returning, Grayson Trammell. He threw for more yards than any quarterback in the state of Tennessee last year. So it's going to be a big challenge for the Wildcats. We'll have all Tullahoma football games for you every Friday night, and we're looking forward to it. We're going to start tonight talking a little bit Atlanta Braves. You know, the Braves have been in the news a lot this weekend for multiple reasons. So let's talk a little bit about the reasons the Braves were in the news this weekend. First of all, they were in the news because Chipper Jones, of course, was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday. Certainly deserving, and here's why. Chipper was the Atlanta Braves' #1 overall pick in the 1990 Major League Baseball draft. Chipper basically was the third baseman for the Braves from 1995 to 2012. And there's an exception there. The exception is 2002-2003 when Chipper primarily played left field. You may not remember that, but Chipper played left field in 2002-2003. Other than that, though, for his entire career, he was the primary third baseman for the Atlanta Braves. He was an 8-time All-Star. He won the 1999 National League Most Valuable Player Award, the 99 and 2000 National League Silver Slugger Award for third baseman, and he was the Major League Baseball batting champion in 2008 after hitting .364. Remember that? .364 for Chipper in 2008. He ended his career in 2012 with a .303 career batting average, 468 home runs, 1,623 RBIs. He has the most career RBIs for a third baseman and holds the Braves team record for career on-base percentage at .402. Chipper Jones ranks third on the Braves' career home run list, and that's a pretty special list, Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews. He spent his entire 19-year Major League Baseball career and all 23 years as a professional baseball player in the Atlanta organization. That's just phenomenal. I mean, that's unheard of. Who else spent 19 years with the same team? I don't know. I'm asking the question. You can't call and tell me, but I'm sure there are some others. But 19 years with the same team, that's phenomenal. Among switch hitters, and Chipper was that, he ranked second behind Eddie Murray, played his career with the Orioles, second behind Eddie Murray for career RBIs, and Chipper is the only switch hitter in Major League Baseball history with a career batting average of at least 300 and 400 or more home runs. The only switch hitter. He was the 18th player in baseball history to accumulate 5,000 at-bats and finish with at least a 300 career batting average, a 400 on-base percentage, and a 500 slugging percentage. The only switch hitter in baseball history to reach all of those milestones. On June 28th, his number was retired by the Braves, and he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame January 24th, 2018. The ceremony was yesterday. Chipper Jones, a first ballot Hall of Famer, and certainly deserving of that. So why else were the Braves in the news this weekend? Well, not just because Chipper Jones was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but also because young pitcher Sean Newcomb took a no-hitter into the ninth inning yesterday. Don't know if you saw it or not. I didn't. But he gave up a two-strike hit in the ninth inning with 2 outs. Took a no-hitter, 8 2/3 innings, 2 strikes, 1 strike away from a no-hitter for Sean Newcomb. And you would think it was the greatest day of this young man's career, of his life. I mean, 8 2/3 no-hitter. I mean, that's awesome. So when he gets through and gets a shower and goes to Twitter, what's he hearing about? He's not hearing about his almost no-hitter. He's hearing about some tweet that he put out when he was in high school that had some sort of slur on it or something. And today, that's basically all you've heard about is his reaction to this Twitter dig by some reporter who wanted to go back and find out who Sean Newcomb was when he went 8 2/3 no hit. So I just sort of bring it out there for conversation. First of all, if you're a professional athlete, hire somebody to go scrub your social media completely clean. I mean, hire somebody. You're a professional athlete. Social media is everything. I mean, this can make or break you, as Sean Newcomb is finding out today. So hire somebody to scrub your social media all the way back to the first time you open those accounts. If you're a college athlete or a high school athlete or a middle school athlete or a grammar school athlete, here's a real good tip. Don't put out anything on social media that can be taken as a slur. No matter how mad you are, no matter how drunk you are, no matter how anything you are, don't put out anything on social media that's going to reflect negatively on you. Now, that's just not true for athletes. That's true for everybody. You build an image now on social media. You have an opportunity to control the story about yourself on social media. So if you don't feel good about doing that, just don't be on there. and others will control your story. But if you want to be on there and you want to control your story, that's great. That's what it's for. But keep it positive. Athletes, you can make your image very positive. You can make yourself look like a better person than you actually are. Trust me, I do it. I'm not that good of a person, but I can get on social media and say things positive and come across as a better person than I am. I'll just tell you. And you can do that too. But it takes, some focus and some planning. And so go back tonight. Get on your social media accounts. Go all the way back to when they started and delete whatever you need to delete. Get that done. Poor Sean Newcomb. It doesn't matter what I think about what he tweeted. I'm sure he would give anything if he could go back and get rid of it, but he can't. Too late now. So professional athletes, hire somebody, hire an IT person to go back and take care of that for you. So where do the Braves sit here? We're past the halfway point now. We are past the All-Star break. Most Major League Baseball teams have played over 100 games. So we're getting close to the final third of the regular season here. So where do the Braves stand? The Braves are in second place, a game and a half outside behind Philadelphia. Braves have been slumping. They sort of ended that yesterday with Newcomb's great performance, beat the Dodgers. That's a tough team. Miami coming into SunTrust Park. The Braves need to sweep here. They need to get back on their winning ways. It doesn't get any easier when you go down the stretch for the Braves. So they got to get back in their winning ways if they expect to win this pennant. They've got some real competition when it comes to not only the National League East Division title, because the Phillies don't seem to be going away. And the Nationals, although they got some problems, I'm not sure the Nationals are going to be able to hang in this thing. They've got some clubhouse problems. But, the Cubs are having a good year and the Brewers are having a really good year. The Pirates are right there in contention for the 2 wild card spots. And then when you get to the West, the Dodgers and Arizona having really good years, and Colorado right there. So the Braves have got a lot of competition for not only the East Division title, but for that wild card spot. So they need to make a move or two. I think they made a move over the weekend. I don't think it's a significant one. They're going to need to make a significant move. I still think the Braves are a year away. So I think they've had a better than expected season. But if they want to try to get in the playoffs this year, they've got some moves to be made. So, thinking about the Braves being in the news as much as they were this weekend, it got me to thinking who would be the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Not the Milwaukee Braves, not the Boston Braves, the Atlanta Braves franchise since '66 when they moved to Atlanta. Who would be the 5 faces of the Braves? I'm just going to throw out names when we come back. Again, would love to give you an opportunity to call in and talk about that. Maybe some folks here in London have some opinion of who would be the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. We've got more to talk about. We're going to talk about the SEC East a little bit. There was a good article this weekend put out pointing out some of the weaknesses of some of the teams that Tennessee will be competing with in the SEC East. And again, I'm going to give you my 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. As time permits, we're going to start breaking down some high school football regions and classifications. We're 17 days away from kickoff. Tullahoma and Shelbyville live from Wilkins Stadium. Come on down to London's. It's happy hour. It's the home of the best burger in Tullahoma. We'd love to see you down here at London's on the corner of the alley and Lincoln Street. Driven by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma, live from London's. This is the Shasteen Show on 93.9 The Duck.
Have you heard the news? The Russell Barnett Automotive family has launched its new and improved website. That's russellbarnett.com. With over 1,000 new and pre-owned vehicles to choose from, then look no further than russellbarnett.com. Online service appointments, customer testimonials, and vehicle history reports, this website has it all. We are the largest Middle Tennessee family-owned dealership with 5 locations to choose from. RussellBarnett.com, and why buy anywhere else?
93.9 The Duck, your local radio station playing the classic hits you know and love. The Duck covers all your local high school and college sports, from the Shasteen Show on Monday nights to Alabama football on Saturdays. Spreading the word to our listeners about your local business from southern Middle Tennessee to North Alabama is what the Duck does. If you're a new business looking to grow or an established business looking to expand, the Duck has a custom plan to fit your needs. So become part of the flock with 93.9 The Duck.
Think there's only one way to earn a college degree? It's time to explore your alternatives at Motlow State Community College. With our diverse degree options, a variety of course formats, and convenient locations, students can customize a college experience to fit any lifestyle, budget, or schedule. There are countless ways to get the education you need. Come explore them with us at Motlow State Community College.
I'm working with a home buyer from Louisiana, and he asked me what type of internet access we have in Tullahoma. So I told him all about LightTube, and he said, "You're kidding me. There's fiber optics available in Tullahoma?" And I said, "Not only that, but it's great service, most reliable. You get to work with people in Tullahoma, and it's awesome." And he said, "People need to know in Tullahoma how lucky they are."
Centrally located to the colleges, high schools, and middle schools it serves across southern Middle Tennessee, Sports Plus is also Tullahoma's only locally owned sports store with brands like Under Armour, Wilson, Rawlings, Majestic Athletics, and New Era baseball caps. Owner Joe Barstad has something for all fans and athletes alike, from pro and college apparel to your favorite hometown team. Sports Plus also works with the latest uniform trends and technology. Learn more at sportsplustullahoma.com.
You're watching The Shasteen Show, presented by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma on LightTube Channel 23 and 93.9 The Duck. Now back to Scott and Ken at London's in downtown Tullahoma.
Welcome back to the Shasteen Show. I'm Scott Shasteen. Good to have you in on this very pleasant Monday, man. This weather's really starting to feel like fall. Really starting to feel like football season, which it will be in just a couple of weeks. Went down to the practice field on Friday. Watched the Wildcats practice a little bit. I think Tullahoma looked good from what I saw. 2 or 3 different players taking snaps at quarterback. They were working on offensive drills, saw some nice long runs. Bryson Korn looks really good at running back. And congratulations to Matthew Ross, who has been chosen to wear the number 8 for the Tullahoma Wildcats. That's about as good an honor as you can get as a Tullahoma High School football player, to wear that Eli Groh number 8 jersey. And Matt Ross has been designated to wear that this year, so congratulations to him. He looked good. And when Coach Olive was here 3 or 4 weeks ago, you heard him talk about a young man, Jacoby Thomas, who is a sophomore. And he said that Tullahoma doesn't get a Jacoby Thomas very often. And after seeing that young man in his uniform catch a couple of long passes, Jacoby Thomas is special. I mean, this kid is going to be fantastic. So you want to get out and see him. I think I read that Fan Feast is going to be a week from maybe this Friday. Fan Feast maybe going to be this Friday against Warren County. It used to be on the Tuesday before the week of the start of the regular season, but they've moved it back to Friday, 2 weeks before the start of the regular season. So if I'm not mistaken, Fan Feast is this Friday, 7 o'clock. Warren County is the opponent. It is a fundraiser for the quarterback club. So you want to get down to Wilkins Stadium, buy yourself a plate of food, and watch the Wildcats go against the Pioneers for Fan Feast. All right, so at the break, we're going to talk a little bit about the Atlanta Braves and who would be the 5 faces of the Braves. Now, for me, it's practically impossible. I mean, I've told y'all that I can remember the first game the Braves played in Atlanta I guess the first game they played as the Atlanta Braves. Honestly, I don't know whether they were in Atlanta or on the road, but I know Milo Hamilton and Ernie Johnson were doing that play-by-play, and I was listening. 6, 7 years old, and listened to the Braves every night for years. Have watched them, obviously, off and on ever since the games came to TBS under Ted Turner, and just a huge Braves fan. I mean, I couldn't pull for any other baseball team, but to start naming the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves, to me, was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be, to be honest with you, because I mean, I had to consider people who I didn't even put on the list, and some of them are in the Hall of Fame. So it's hard when you consider people who are in the Hall of Fame, but you can't put them on that 5 faces in a block of granite of the Atlanta Braves. Now, not all of them are in the Hall of Fame. One of the favorite Braves that I ever saw was Al Hrabowski, the Mad Hungarian, they called him. He was a relief pitcher and had a most unique pre-pitch routine. If you don't know what I'm talking about, pardon me, go to YouTube and research and get a look at Al Hrabowski as he got ready to pitch. Another person who didn't come close to making my list was John Rocker. You remember John Rocker? He was a dominant relief pitcher for what? A year? Maybe 2? And then this guy just lost his mind. Talk about if he had been around, if social media had been around when John Rocker was around, whew, it would have been ugly. He lost his mind. So he wasn't with the Braves very long. Tommy Aaron. I don't know how many people know that Hank Aaron had a brother, Tommy Aaron, that played for the Braves. Honestly, he wasn't very good. And Tommy Aaron did not come close to making my list of the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Orlando Cepeda, on the other hand, was a guy I think you had to consider now. The big cat at first base was part of some really good, people forget the Braves had some really good teams back in the late 60s. The Braves won their division in 1969, and were it not for the Miracle Mets, Tom Seaver, Tommy Agee, those guys, and that miracle run they went on, I think the Braves would have gone to the World Series in 1969. They had some great teams, and Orlando Cepeda was a big part of that. Now, he played part of his career with the Cardinals, but he came to the Braves, and the big cat, he was a big part of those really good teams, but he didn't make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Andrew Jones did not make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Andrew Jones may be in the Hall of Fame. Andrew Jones was a phenomenal defensive center fielder. Some say he was the greatest defensive center fielder in baseball history. I don't think we appreciated Andrew Jones when we had him in Atlanta. He was unbelievable and a pretty good hitter too. Ralph Garr did not make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. The Roadrunner, they called him. Ralph Garr, part of some really, really good Atlanta Braves teams back in the late 60s and early 70s. Not one of the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Bob Horner, third baseman Bob Horner, he didn't quite make the list. Bob Horner was on some of the worst Braves teams ever. I mean, those 80s Braves team were just terrible. It was that terrible time that led to the creation of the farm system that led to the 1990 Braves and 14 straight division titles. The Braves of the 80s were so bad. Bob Horner was a part of those teams. Phil Niekro did not make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Nuxie was phenomenal. I saw him pitch the night we landed on the moon, July 19th or whatever it was, 1969. I was in Atlanta. Saw Phil Niekro pitch a complete game. Hank Aaron hit a home run. It was outstanding. But Phil Niekro didn't quite make the list. Not really sure why now. He is in the Hall of Fame. He won 300 games. He was amazing. The crew here is not going to like this one. Bobby Cox did not make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Bobby Cox won 14 straight division titles as manager. I think probably had the best team in baseball 5, 6, 7 of those years, and only won 1 World Series. Just 1. Yes, I'm still bitter about it. 1 in 1995. It was great, but he should have won more. So Bobby Cox didn't make it. And finally, Greg Maddux, Mad Dog, did not make my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. Everybody couldn't make it. Only 5 could make it. Mad Dog didn't make it. He pitched too much of his career with the Chicago Cubs. Now, he was great with the Cubs, and the Braves really didn't start rolling big time until Maddux came over. He was the glue that brought everything together. I think he really helped Smoltz and Glavine to the next level just with his mind. They called him the professor, but he didn't make it. So my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves has to begin with Henry Aaron. Henry Aaron, to me, will always be the all-time home run king. He probably had his greatest years with the Milwaukee Braves, but honestly, the first decade that the Braves were in Atlanta, it was all about Hank Aaron. I mean, he was the king of baseball. He and Willie Mays were the kings of baseball. No way you could have a 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves and not include Henry Aaron. I got to put in Dale Murphy. Dale Murphy, awesome. He was on some terrible Braves teams as well. Him and Horner sort of carried that franchise for about 15 years. Dale Murphy, Hall of Famer, great Braves, still a great ambassador for the Atlanta Braves. I couldn't have a 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves without Dale Murphy. And look, Chipper Jones has got to be there. First ballot Hall of Famer, 19 years with the Braves. You heard me read down his stats. I think Chipper Jones is the single most deserving strictly Atlanta Brave to be on that 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. You heard the stats. Chipper Jones, the centerpiece of the 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. And then finally, I got to put Glavine and Smoltz in there. I loved Maddux. Loved those teams. You know, what a run for 20 years. But Glavine and Smoltz, they were the absolute core of that pitching staff. Glavine and Smoltz, when it got to the playoffs, it was all about some John Smoltz. He saved 50 games as a reliever. He was one of the best relievers in the game after being one of the best starters. Both of them Hall of Famers. Aaron, Murphy, Chipper, Glavine, and Smoltz, my 5 faces of the Atlanta Braves. When we come back, we're going to talk a little SEC football, and I'm going to tell you my 5 faces of Tullahoma Wildcat football. Driven by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma, live downtown at London's. This is the Shasteen Show on 93.9 The Duck.
Have you heard the news? The Russell Barnett Automotive family has launched its new and improved website. That's russellbarnett.com. With over 1,000 new and pre-owned vehicles to choose from, then look no further than russellbarnett.com. Online service appointments, customer testimonials, and vehicle history reports, this website has it all. We are the largest Middle Tennessee family-owned dealership with 5 locations to choose from. russellbarnett.com, and why buy anywhere else?
93.9 The Duck, your local radio station playing the classic hits you know and love. The Duck covers all your local high school and college sports, from the Shasteen Show on Monday nights to Alabama football on Saturdays. Spreading the word to our listeners about your local business from southern Middle Tennessee to North Alabama is what the Duck does. If you're a new business looking to grow or an established business looking to expand, the Duck has a custom plan to fit your needs. So become part of the flock with 93.9 The Duck.
Think there's only one way to earn a college degree? It's time to explore your alternatives at Motlow State Community College. With our diverse degree options, a variety of course formats, and convenient locations, students can customize a college experience to fit any lifestyle, budget, or schedule. There are countless ways to get the education you need. Come explore them with us at Motlow State Community College.
Do you need more? More golf, hunting, or camping? More basketball, soccer, and baseball? Do you need more football? Do you just need more sports? LightTube's digital sports tier has more sports. Offering 12 additional sports channels for only $3 additional a month? What are you waiting on? Call 455-4515 and get more today.
Centrally located to the colleges, high schools, and middle schools it serves across southern Middle Tennessee, Sports Plus is also Tullahoma's only locally owned sports store with brands like Under Armour, Wilson, Rawlings, Majestic Athletics, and New Era baseball caps. Owner Joe Barstad has something for all fans and athletes alike. From pro and college apparel to your favorite hometown team, Sports Plus also works with the latest uniform trends and technology. Learn more at sportsplustullahoma.com.
You're watching The Shasteen Show, presented by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma on LightTube Channel 23 and 93.9 The Duck. Now back to Scott and Ken at London's in downtown Tullahoma.
And we welcome you back into London's here on the Shasteen Show, our last Monday show of July. Hard to believe. Next week, we'll be here, 6 o'clock on Monday. It will be August. Ken Keller out on special assignment tonight. We have sent him to Knoxville, Tennessee, hopefully to get him to change his ways. Now, I don't have a lot of confidence in it, but we're going to do the best we can on Keller. Special assignment. He'll be back next week. So with high school football season 17 days away, we talked last week about naming the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. Now, Ken's not here with his, so I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And this is strictly arbitrary. Look, I know there's going to be people listening who are going to, and who watch the replay on LightTube Channel 23 beginning Wednesday at 6 o'clock, who say, oh, I can't believe he didn't say this person, this person, this person, this person. Look, it's strictly random, all right? I have been announcing football games for Tullahoma High School for 32 years. Covered the team as the sports editor at Tullahoma News for a couple of years, so I got a little bit of cred here, and it's just 5 people who I think deserve to be on it. But there's a lot of names who aren't going to be on it who probably maybe deserve to be on it. I can go all the way back to when I was a youngster visiting Wilkins Stadium in the old Central Tennessee Conference and watching players like Paul Cooley and Willie Talbert. What a backfield those guys had in the mid-'60s for the Tullahoma Wildcats. Great coaches like Creed McClure. You know, there's not a lot of people that know who Creed McClure was. A lot of folks think he was just the principal at Tullahoma High School, and he was when I was there. But back in the 50s, Creed McClure was the head coach of the Tullahoma Wildcats, and he had some absolutely tremendous teams. Creed McClure barely not on the 5 faces. And W.C. Dub Cooper, head coach of the Wildcats, had some really good football teams. Joe Gaddis had a great run as head coach of the Wildcats in the mid-'80s, put out a number of Division I college athletes and a couple of professional football players. And I'll just read you some names. Some go back far, some don't. Darrell Peppers, who was actually in my class at school. Darrell was an outstanding football player, basketball player, Tullahoma High School. Hank Childers. There's a couple of guys in here that'll remember Hank Childers running that football, man. That dude was phenomenal. He got hurt. His senior year was really hobbled, but Hank Childers was a heck of a running back for the Tullahoma Wildcats. John Bear. John Bear was a great player here at Tullahoma. Went on to play college football, I think, at Virginia Tech. Rob Norman Most folks remember Rob Norman for his baseball exploits. He was a first-team All-State baseball player, went to Mississippi State, had a great baseball career, but Rob Norman was also a first-team All-State linebacker. He would blow you up. Rob Norman did not make the Five Faces of Tullahoma High School football. Great athletes like Wayne Shaw, phenomenal in the early 80s as a running back, went on to play at the University of Alabama, broke his leg while at Alabama, still came back and started at fullback his senior year for the Alabama Crimson Tide. His brother Maurice, I think, was probably a better running back than Wayne. Maurice Shaw may have been the single greatest running back I ever saw at Tullahoma High School. Maurice Shaw was about 6'2". Well, you know how tall he is. He's still around. He's a coach on the Wildcat staff. He was about 6'2", 230 pounds, and could fly. He went on to Mississippi State, I believe, and played a little college football there. Maurice Shaw was fantastic. Lamar Carter was exceptional defensive end, wide receiver for the Wildcats. He went on to Tennessee State to play. He was the OVC Defensive Player of the Year as a defensive end when he was a sophomore. Got injured, missed his junior year, and then I think redshirted a year. He was off for 2 years, came back as a senior. Now listen to this, and was the OVC Defensive Player of the Year as a linebacker. Lamar Carter, one of the greatest football players in Tullahoma history. Jared Davis. Y'all remember Jared Davis not too long ago was just an exceptional quarterback for Tullahoma. Had some great years. He was the quarterback on that team that went to the third round of the playoffs a few years back. Jared Davis, outstanding. Cass Barnes holds the Tullahoma passing records. Phenomenal quarterback. Cass Barnes could make something out of nothing. Not on the Five Faces of Tullahoma High School football. And Cameron Howard may be the single greatest athlete who ever came through Tullahoma, Tennessee. Cameron Howard won, I think, a total of 5 or 6 state championships in track and field. He was unbelievable. Had he not injured, let me put that different. Cameron Howard went to Tennessee State, then transferred to the University of Tennessee on track and field scholarship. He was in Puerto Rico. He was a long jumper and was competing for an NCAA championship. At the time, he was competing in basically a pre-Olympic event. Cameron Howard was long jumping 26 feet. He was on his way to qualifying for the Olympics. But down in Puerto Rico at an event, he jumped out of the pit. He long jumped so far. He jumped out of the pit, injured his knee, was never the same. I saw Cameron a couple of years ago. He was here at a football game, doing great, looks great, but he may have been the greatest athlete I've ever seen at Tullahoma High School, but he did not make the Five Faces of Tullahoma Wildcat football. I'll tell you those 5 names when we come back. Driven by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma, live from London's. It's the Shasteen Show, 93.9 The Duck.
Have you heard the news? The Russell Barnett Automotive family has launched its new and improved website. That's russellbarnett.com. With over 1,000 new and pre-owned vehicles to choose from, then look no further than russellbarnett.com. Online service appointments, customer testimonials, and vehicle history reports, this website has it all. We are the largest Middle Tennessee family-owned dealership with 5 locations to choose from. russellbarnett.com, and why buy anywhere else?
93.9 The Duck, your local radio station playing the classic hits you know and love. The Duck covers all your local high school and college sports, from the Shasteen Show on Monday nights to Alabama football on Saturdays. Spreading the word to our listeners about your local business from southern Middle Tennessee to North Alabama is what the Duck does. If you're a new business looking to grow or an established business looking to expand, the Duck has a custom plan to fit your needs. So become part of the flock with 93.9 The
Duck. Think there's only one way to earn a college degree? It's time to explore your alternatives at Motlow State Community College. With our diverse degree options, a variety of course formats, and convenient locations, students can customize a college experience to fit any lifestyle, budget, or schedule. There are countless ways to get the education you need. Come explore them with us at Motlow State Community College.
I'm working with a home buyer from Louisiana, and he asked me what type of internet access we have in Tullahoma. So I told him all about LightTube, and he said, "You're kidding me. There's fiber optics available in Tullahoma?" And I said, "Not only that, but it's great service, most reliable. You get to work with people in Tullahoma, and it's awesome." And he said, "People need to know in Tullahoma how lucky they are."
Centrally located to the colleges, high schools, and middle schools it serves across southern Middle Tennessee, Sports Plus is also Tullahoma's only locally owned sports store with brands like Under Armour, Wilson, Rawlings, Majestic Athletics, and New Era baseball caps. Owner Joe Barstad has something for all fans and athletes alike. From pro and college apparel to your favorite hometown team, Sports Plus also works with the latest uniform trends and technology. Learn more at sportsplustullahoma.com.
You're watching The Shasteen Show, presented by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma on LightTube Channel 23 and 93.9 The Duck. Now back to Scott and Ken at London's in downtown Tullahoma.
And we welcome you back on this July Monday night, downtown Tullahoma at the corner of Wall Street and Lincoln Street. It's London's, the home of Tullahoma's best burger. It's happy hour. Come on down any Monday night. We'd love to see you. They treat you right. Great food. They get it to you fast. Great service. There's nothing that's not good about London's. We're here every Monday night. You can watch the replay of this show beginning Wednesday at 6 on LightTube Channel 23. And yeah, you know, I'm sort of going off the sports of the day trail today. Had some preparation for the show. Ken got held up. Had some things that I had, so I just thought, we'll just do some five faces tonight. So the five faces of Tullahoma High School football. And look, they started playing. A friend of mine sent me a picture of the 1922 Tullahoma High School football team. I had thought my entire life that they had started playing football in 1924. I thought that's when Tullahoma High School was open. But I know a person who's got a picture of the 1922 Tullahoma High School football team. But anyway, obviously, you can't go back really and research those players' statistics. You can't really put that together. So much of what I choose to be on the five faces of Tullahoma High School football are people that I've seen play, except for one. And any listing of the five faces of Tullahoma High School football has to begin with Frank Mullins. Frank Mullins is the ultimate legend of Tullahoma High School football. Frank Mullins played at Tullahoma from 1954 to 1956. And in 55, he had an absolutely phenomenal year. In 56, he had an absolutely phenomenal year. This guy, in one season, scored 210 points. That was a state record for a while until it got broken whenever. He had 12 runs of 80 yards or more. I just think about that. 12 runs of 80 yards or more. Frank Mullins was unbelievable. At the time in Tullahoma, it was almost impossible, and Frank, again, played in the mid-50s. It was almost impossible to be like an all-state player if you played for somewhere like Tullahoma. Media wasn't like it is now. Those things were pretty much centered in the metropolitan areas, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Memphis. There's no way Frank Mullins should have not been a first-team all-state player. He was first-team all-mid-state and second-team all-state, but he should have been first-team all-state. Listen at the team that the Wildcats had in 1956. I think this is potentially the greatest team in Tullahoma football history. They were 10-0-1. They had one tie to Lewisburg, 13-13. None of the schools around here, there were no county schools. They were all city schools. Tullahoma tied Lewisburg 13-13. Other than that, though, they threw 5 shutouts in those 11 games. Well, again, went 10-0-1. They outscored their opposition 365-66. 10-0-1 on the year. That's the 1956 Tullahoma Wildcats, coached by Creed McClure. Frank Mullins, after he left Tullahoma, he went to the University of the South, Sewanee, and played football. He was part of the undefeated Sewanee team of 1958 that was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. So Frank Mullins is in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's in it as a member of the 1958 Sewanee Tigers, who went undefeated and were inducted. When Frank came back to Tullahoma, he started Pop Warner football. He had a big hand in starting Pop Warner football in the mid-'60s there, and as you know, it's now known as the Frank Mullins League. So Frank Mullins, the ultimate legend, gets the center spot on the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football for me. The next 3 are players that played relatively within about 10 years of each other. But because of what they did here and because of what they went on to do, I'm putting them in my 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. That begins with Antonio London. Antonio London, probably the most famous, the most accomplished football player in Tullahoma High School history. He was absolutely great here. He was a sophomore on that phenomenal 1987 team coached by Joe Gaddis that went to the 3rd round of the playoffs. The best Tullahoma team I've ever seen. Antonio went on to be first-team All-State linebacker. He signed with the University of Alabama, played 4 years at Alabama. I mean, Antonio had a nose for the football long before he was a starting linebacker at Alabama. He was just playing on special teams. I couldn't tell you the game. I may have my facts a little foggy, but I think I remember a game on special teams when Antonio went down and forced not 1 but 2 fumbles by the kickoff returner, and Alabama recovered those fumbles. He just had a nose for the football. Was a starter on the 1992 National Championship Alabama Crimson Tide, coached by Gene Stallings. He was drafted by the Detroit Lions in the 3rd round. He was the number 62 overall pick of the 1993 NFL Draft, played 6 seasons for the Detroit Lions, and actually was on the Green Bay Packers his final season. Many don't remember that. After retiring, Antonio moved to Pelham, Alabama. He owns a facilities management company and comes back to town every once in a while. Of course, his family, very well known here in Tullahoma. His brother Eugene, an outstanding athlete. Joseph, an outstanding athlete. And his father, Eugene Sr., just a great man, a great referee here in Middle Tennessee for years and years and years. Probably a great athlete himself, although I don't remember. Antonio Monte Stick London has to be on the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. Another face I'll put on the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football is Jamil Northcutt, now Dr. Jamil Northcutt. Jamil Northcutt was named Mr. Football, pardon me, at Tullahoma High School his senior year. I think he is the only Mr. Football winner Tullahoma High School has ever had. He was a 2-time All-State selection, played tight end, linebacker, fullback, first-team All-State pick by the Associated Press and the Tennessee Sports Writers. Again, the Tennessean named him the Class 4A Defensive Player of the Year. and Mr. Football Lyman. He was on the Dream Team. He was the most valuable defensive player in the region and in the mid-state. As a senior, Jamil Northcutt led the Wildcats to a 9-3 record, recorded 189 tackles. 189 tackles. Now, that record was broken just 3 or 4 years ago, and for the life of me, I'm not going to remember this young man's name. He played linebacker. He had 208, I believe, tackles. Unbelievable. Wasn't named to any All-State team, by the way, and I should kick myself for not remembering his name. But Jamil had 189 tackles his senior year, caught 3 passes. Also a member of the National Honor Society. While at Ole Miss, Jamil continued to excel in the classroom, made the SEC Academic Honor Roll all 4 years, received his bachelor's degree, went on to get a master's degree, went on to get a doctorate. Dr. Northcutt has worked for the SEC office. He's been the Associate Athletic Director at Ole Miss. He's worked for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's worked for the Cleveland Browns. Dr. Jamil Northcutt has professionally, beyond football, has just been a real difference maker in the SEC, again at Ole Miss, in the NFL. He's worked for the NFL office. He has done super great things, but I think one of the neatest things that Jamil Northcutt did was while he was at Ole Miss, he wore the Chucky Mullins number 38. Now, if you don't know what that is, I don't really have time to go and explain all of that, but that's a very, very special honor at Ole Miss to wear the Chucky Mullins number. It is a little bit like wearing the number 8 for the Wildcats now. Wearing that 38 for Ole Miss is that kind of honor. Chucky Mullins. Dr. Jamil Northcutt wore that jersey at Ole Miss. So Dr. Jamil Northcutt makes the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football. My final player is Steve Matthews. Steve Matthews was drafted in the 7th round, 199th pick overall in the 1994 NFL draft. Steve was a central figure in those great Tullahoma teams of the late 80s. Steve didn't hold all the passing records, and he wasn't a great runner with the football, but Steve guided that offense, was a coach on the field for Joe Gaddis on those great teams. And Steve Matthews went on to have what I think is an extremely distinguished career. Again, drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs after he went to college. Steve played collegiately at Harford Community College in Harford County, Maryland. Not a lot of folks know that. Played for the Fighting Owls and later played at the University of Memphis. Started 2 years at Memphis, but originally signed with the Tennessee Volunteers. That just didn't work out for Steve. So he went to Harford Community College, then came back to Memphis. Had a couple of phenomenal years at Memphis. In '92, he completed 61% of his passes for 2,084 yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. His senior year, they weren't near as good as they were his junior year, but still completed 60% of his passes for 1,900 yards, 13 touchdowns. Steve Matthews had an outstanding college career at Memphis, drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, but after 3 years with no playing time. Steve went and joined the Jacksonville Jaguars. He played in 2 games, actually started a game in the NFL, a quarterback from Little Tullahoma, Tennessee. September 7th, 1997, led the Jags to a win over the New York Giants, completed 23 of 35 passes, over 200 yards, no interceptions. And then Steve finished up his career playing for the Tennessee Titans in 1998. But Steve has done very well as a head coach. Steve is now the head coach of the Knoxville Catholic Fighting Irish in Knoxville. He has won 2 state championships with Knoxville Catholic. Was the head coach in Moore County here for a couple of years. An assistant coach, often known for the Tullahoma Wildcats. So the 5 faces of Tullahoma High School football for me are Frank Mullins, Antonio London, Steve Matthews, Dr. Jamil Northcutt, and John Olive. I got to put John Olive on that Five Faces. Tullahoma's been playing football, 95 years? John Olive's coached 25 of those. He's won more games than any coach. He's coached longer than any coach. Through the ups and downs, there's one thing that's always excited the town. That's Tullahoma High School football. John Olive has steered that ship steady for 25 years. He has to be on the Five Faces of Tullahoma High School football. Whew. That's going to do it for me. I appreciate the crowd here at London's. We'll be back next week. Ken will be back. For Daniel Scroggins, Dave Stripling, Caleb King back at the studio, I'm Scott Shasteen. Be good to each other.
The Shasteen Show, presented by Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma and brought to you by Southern Community Bank, Rogers Insurance Group, and Mission Collision, is a presentation of Bowman Media Company and 93.9 The Duck. The show is taped before a live audience at London's in downtown Tullahoma, Monday nights at 6 p.m. Come join us for cold beer and Tullahoma's best burgers. Thanks for watching The Shasteen Show on LightTube Channel 23.